practice it, exercise 6.7 flipLines. We're asked to write a method named flipLines that accepts as its parameter a scanner for an input file and writes to the console the same file's contents with successive pairs of lines, however in reversed order. And then we're given an example for this. So first thing we need to note is that we need a method named flipLines. We're going to have public static void, and it's void because it's not returning anything. We're just going to have sysout statements where we reverse these two lines. And then we're going to have flipLines and then our brackets in here. Once we have this, we need a scanner as our parameter because we are scanning a file. And since we're going to go through each line of our file, we need a while loop that runs while scan dot has next line. And in our while loop, we are going to get this line. We are going to get this line, and we are going to swap them. We are going to swap them as long as there are lines in our file that's being passed through. And if there are an odd amount of lines, we need to handle that. So what we can do first is start writing our lines. So we need something to store this first line. We'll store it in a string, and we'll call it first, and we'll set it equal to scan dot next line. That way it gets the next line. And then we're going to do the same thing. However, we're going to call it second, and this will be the next line. So we'll have scan dot next line for this. However, if there's an odd number, we need to work around that. And the workaround for that is that it's just not going to get switched. So everything else, these last two lines would be switched. However, this line would remain the same. So to actually switch the lines, we'll need sysout statements. We'll have system.out.print line, and after we print these out, we'll get to handling the odd line out in a second. So we have print line, and in here we want to print the second line first and the first line second. So we'll print second, and then after that, if we wanted to, we can just write /n, or we would need plus and then parentheses and /n, or we could just write this on a new line where we do print line and then first. That way it prints out the second line and then the first line. However, we don't want this to switch if there is only an odd number of lines. So we can actually store this in an if statement. And in our if statement, we need to check if there is even a next line. If not, then it's not going to print out anything. So we can actually store these two in the same if block. So we'll have our if statement like this and put these two lines of code in it. We'll have an if statement that runs or it executes if scan.has next line. And we're looking at this line. So if we submit it, we can see that we've passed the test. And a summary for this would be that we have a while loop that runs as long as our program that's being, or as long as our scan that's being passed in has next line. So it's going to run through all of these lines. First, it's going to scan the first line, which will be this line. Then it will, if scan has next line, which obviously it does have a next line right here, it will set second equal to next line. Then it will print out the second line, break out of this if statement, and print out the first line. Now, if there is an odd number of lines, so this line, there is no next line, we'll go through our while loop. We'll set this last odd line equal to first right here. And then we see that we have no next line, so we're not going to go in this if statement. We're just going to skip it and print out the first, which is what we stored, this is what we stored in here, the odd line. We stored the odd line in first, and that's all we're going to print since we don't have a next line here.